What's up everyone, I'm Eldritch, and this is my quick look for the Mikasa. I finally figured out a format for these. Basically, when Wargaming springs a new premium ship on me like this, I'm gonna take it into battle a few times, do my stat comparison thing, show you some gameplay clips, and then just have a little opinion bit at the end on whether I think it's worth buying, and whether or not it's worth revisiting for a full review in the future. Now, as far as I can tell, the Mikasa is only available on the EU gift shop and only during Gamescom. So if at the end of this quick look you decide that you want to buy it, you'll have to do it quickly and before Sunday. The Mikasa comes in a package deal for €19.99 that also includes a port slot, 2,250 doubloons, 3 days of premium, 20 damage control party 2 and 20 repair party 2 consumables. This works out to about €15 for all the additional bits and €5 for the Mikasa. Sort of. Obviously the Mikasa is not available without this package, so calling it a €5 premium ship is a bit off. However, if you're already in the market for some doubloons and some port slots and some consumables, then that is actually how it works out for you. €15 for all the additional bits, €5 for the premium ship. Now let's take a quick look at the Mikasa stats. The Mikasa is a tier 2 battleship. That is unique in the game right now, so there is no other ship to directly compare the Mikasa to. However, I'm going to go ahead and compare it to the Chester, a tier 2 cruiser, and the Kawachi, a tier 3 battleship. And there is a reason why this comparison is legitimate, and I will get to that after the stats. So first off, with 31,200 hit points, the Mikasa is actually situated where I would think a tier 2 battleship should be. The Kawachi having 38,700 puts it at 7,500 more hit points, which if you work it out over the tiers is kind of how battleships progress in the Japanese line. You also have almost 13,000 more hit points than the Chester at tier 2. All of these ships have very average Citadel hit zones, and sometimes you do get hit in the Citadel, but it happens a lot less frequently than it does at higher tiers, because penetration values and accuracy at these lower tiers really aren't that amazing. Now in the category of speed we see the first major problem with the Mikasa, and that is that it only has 18.3 knots top speed. That is incredibly slow and makes it slower than both the Kawachi and even the South Carolina. But a 450 meter turning circle with a 13.3 rudder shift time isn't really all that bad for a battleship. It does mean that the Mikasa really isn't that bad at dodging torpedoes. However, remember that it's a tier 2 ship, and as such it meets destroyers that fire a lot of torpedoes in rapid succession. And repeatedly dodging those torpedo salvos is going to be very difficult. Because the biggest problem the Mikasa has is that it only has a 16,000 horsepower engine, which means it has the exact same engine power as the Chester for a much heavier ship. And while driving the Mikasa, you absolutely notice this. It is incredibly sluggish, very hard to go into a turn from lower speed, very hard to accelerate, drops massively in speed during a turn, and just overall feels like you're pushing a dead rhinoceros over a parking lot. However, a big problem with the Mikasa actually lies in the detection. 11.5 kilometer detection range is actually really bad at these lower tiers, and as you can see, both the Kawachi and the Chester have better surface detection values than the Mikasa. This does matter, as the 11.5 kilometer surface detection range is longer than its gun range, so some of the time you will be shot at before you're able to return fire. Now let's get to guns, and oh boy, another premium battleship that is seriously undergunned. The Mikasa has 4 guns. Four. It has 4 guns. The Kawachi 1 tier higher actually has 2 additional gun turrets to the Mikasa. It has double the guns. That is a big problem. Now, having less guns than the next tier usually isn't that big of a deal, but 4 guns is very little, even at tier 2. And we can easily see that if we look at the DPS. I mean, 680 high explosive DPS? That's disgusting. 1000 AP DPS might actually be the lowest AP DPS in the game. It has a decent alpha strike of almost 30,000 damage, but let's be honest, how often are you actually gonna hit all 4 of your battleship's shots into the enemy citadel at the same time? That really doesn't happen all that often. Now, the Chester is viewed by a lot of people as being one of the worst American cruisers in the game. And even the Chester has better DPS than the Mikasa. The Kawachi, due to having double the guns of the Mikasa, obviously also has a much better alpha strike and a much better DPS. And say what you will about the Kawachi, it definitely does not lack in firepower. And then lastly, secondary guns. And oh boy, finally there's something that the Mikasa is actually good at. Look at this tier 2 battleship having 7 152mm secondary guns and another 9 76mm secondary guns. Now 76mm guns may not be too impressive, but 7 152mm secondary guns are. The Mikasa has almost double the main battery of the Chester as its secondary battery. That's quite impressive. But of course it only has a 3-kilometer range because you're so low tier, and it's gonna be very difficult to get it off. However, I may have some clips prepared. Now the first thing I want to show you is the reason why I included the Kawachi in the stat compare, and that is it seems the Mikasa is getting tier 3 matchmaking. Now given it doesn't get the same matchmaking as the Kawachi because the Kawachi also gets into tier 4 and into tier 5 games, and I've not gotten into any of those with the Mikasa. However, I have not encountered a single game where I wasn't matched like a regular tier 3 battleship. And if you look closely, you'll also see that in only one of these games has the fact that I'm in a tier 2 battleship been evened out by us having an additional tier 3 destroyer. In all other cases, I have just been matched against a tier 3 battleship. There's the one game with another Mikasa, but let's face it, as soon as the novelty has worn off of this ship, this is not gonna happen all that much. You're gonna be the only Mikasa in the game, and if you get matched against a Kawachi or a South Carolina, then that is a very important thing to note for the stat comparison, because it instantly makes the Mikasa worse. Now the Mikasa is of course a battleship, and so the regular random battleship bullshit applies. I fire a salvo at this Chester, well, actually just half a salvo, and then the other half of the salvo I fire at this destroyer. I hit the Chester for a little bit of damage, and I perfectly hit the destroyer with both rounds and blow him up. Now this is of course wacky, and even in the game I was like, boom son, ho ho, yay, but then afterwards you're back to 30 games of nothing interesting happening because you're in a battleship. Now I'm afraid wacky is really the only proper explanation for what the Mikasa does. I mean, look at this. This is supposed to be the big strength of the Mikasa, I suppose. Its amazing secondary batteries. Well, the problem is you never really hit anything with them. Against that destroyer, I hit a few, maybe did a couple of 100 damage, maybe 1,000 damage. And now, look at this guy. There's absolutely no way I'm going to kill him before his friends destroy me, because my secondary batteries all just fire wildly, but they're not hitting. None of them are. I mean, look at this. I'm barely doing any damage. And I still only have 2 main battery salvos of 4 shots total. It's just not enough. Now, if you can set it up like I did here, and you're actually this close that even the idiots manning your secondary gun turrets just cannot miss, then yeah, you can actually do a lot of damage. In this game, I did over 10,000 damage with my secondary guns. Fired some extra into him, but my secondary guns just take him apart. Look at this. Boom, 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 boom. And I get the kill, and it's my first secondary battery kill achievement thingy in the game. Ho ho! But that's really it. Once you've moved past the wackiness, there really is nothing else with the Mikasa. It's just a bad tier 2 battleship, really. It's subpar, it gets matched against tier 3 battleships, apparently, and just has no chance whatsoever against them. Its 4 guns are just very, very, very little, and like anything you do is just the same as a battleship, just with less results. I mean, every 30 seconds you fire your guns, and then a couple of seconds later you hit the enemy and you do, you know, a pitiful amount of damage that any freaking cruiser could have done in the same salvo. So I really don't get much out of battleships in general, but this one in particular I find incredibly boring. Now, would I recommend you purchase this? Absolutely not. If you are a collector and you really enjoy collecting all the wacky nonsense ships in World of Warships, then yes, obviously you won't pick this one up as well. There's no question about it. I mean, it's only going to be on sale over the weekend. It's probably not going to be back in the shop for a while, so yeah, you should pick this up right now. If, however, you're interested in premium ships for reasons of making credits, or making free experience, or training commanders, then this is definitely not the ship for you. If you want a Japanese ship to train your crew, you want to go with the Atago or with the Ishitsuchi. If you really want a premium battleship, go with the Ishitsuchi. It's much better than this thing. If you just want a premium ship to farm credits with, it's still the Murmansk, and it's going to be the Murmansk for quite a while. On top of that, I do not believe this ship is going to be worth me revisiting it for a full review, because I just don't think it does anything. Should they actually buff it and it becomes an interesting playstyle or, interesting ship at all, then I maybe revisit it and actually make a full review on it. But until that happens though, this quick look contains everything you need to know about this ship. If you enjoyed this quick look at the Mikasa, please consider liking and subscribing, and if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments. Today was supposed to be Donkey Double feature and an Armored Warfare gameplay video, but I really wanted to get this one out as quick as possible. So look for the Donkey Double feature tomorrow. But until then, I've been Eldritch Master Donkey, and I'll see you in another video.